Hi, this is Donna Taggert, the dietitian from Department of Aging and Human Services. November is Diabetes Awareness Month. What is diabetes? Well, it's a disease that causes our blood sugars to go too high, and when they stay high, they can damage our eyes, our kidneys, our nerves, etc. And here are some staggering statistics. In the United States, 37.3 million Americans are living with diabetes. 96 million have prediabetes, meaning they haven't gotten that diagnosis yet, but they're getting there. And it costs about $327 billion a year for managing it. And believe it or not, 1 in 4 United States adults with diabetes don't even know they have it. Now here's coming closer to home, Maryland stats. 595,000 adults in Maryland have diabetes. That's 10.8% of our population here in Maryland. And each year, additional 44,000 adults in Maryland are diagnosed with diabetes. That's staggering. So what are some of the risk factors? Well, if you're watching this video and you're a senior, that's one of the big risk factors, something we can't do anything about. As we age, we become more at risk for developing diabetes. Also, family history, can't do anything about that either. But there are some things we can do things about. One of the risk factors is being overweight. 74% of Americans are overweight. Eating unhealthy foods, well, that probably is leading to the overweight. Being inactive, and only 24% of Americans actually meet the guidelines for activity of 150 minutes per week. Smoking is a big risk factor, ups it by like 40%. Sadly, 34 million Americans still smoke, and 58 million are exposed to the secondhand smoke. It's pretty staggering. Now, here's a way that you can personally assess your risk factor. Go to diabetes.org. It's the American Diabetes Association's website. And there's a little 1-minute quiz. You can plug in stuff and you can just see where you fall on that spectrum of risk, or perhaps you even have diabetes. But if you don't and you're wondering what your risk factor is, give that a try. There's 2 types of diabetes. Type 1 used to be called a juvenile onset because as a child, that's when you usually develop type 1 diabetes. It is an autoimmune disease. Something triggers that process, attacks the pancreas. Pancreas can't make insulin, and therefore someone who has type 1 has to be on insulin for the rest of their life. They don't know what causes it still to this day, but they suspect it's some kind of virus because a lot of people are diagnosed in the winter months with type 1 diabetes. Now, just because most children get it, there have been people in their 90s who have been diagnosed with type 1. Just means something did not trigger that whole autoimmune process till later in their life. And so if you've been diagnosed, let's say, with type 2 and the medications, the things the doctor's putting you on, just not working, perhaps it's time to see an endocrinologist because perhaps you might have type 1 and don't know it, and they can determine that through antibody tests and C-peptide. But anyway, only about 5% of the population with diabetes has type 1. And the symptoms come on rapidly. Excessive thirst, excessive urination, excessive hunger, weight loss, and boom, you're diagnosed. Now with type 2, the other type of diabetes, very subtle. Symptoms could be there, could be explained away, especially as you age. You may have like a cut on your hand. You're like, why isn't that healing? That could be a symptom, but it often is not caught. That's why it's important to be visiting your doctor on a regular basis, getting the blood work. A1C is a great test that shows where you're falling. What is happening is they're measuring the hemoglobin and how much sugar is coated on that hemoglobin. Hemoglobin turns over every 3 months. So it's like a 3-month average of what your blood sugars have been. So if that A1, and they have a specific number now, 6.4, you got diabetes. 5.72, that is prediabetes. So you can really get a lot of information just getting that blood test done. Another, not really a type, but gestational diabetes happens during pregnancy. About 10% of all pregnancies have gestational diabetes. The thing with that is higher risk for type 2 once you've had the baby. So really maintaining those good habits that maybe you put into place when you were pregnant and found out you had gestational is important to keep on doing that. So how do you treat diabetes? Well, the American Diabetes Association has that website I told you, diabetes.org. Tons of great information. Go there, lots and lots of good things you can learn. Obviously addressing any of those risk factors. If you're overweight, trying to get help with that. If you smoke, get help with that. There's lots of programs through the health department. If you need to exercise, talk to your doctor first, but then there's lots of options. Department of Aging has great exercise programs at all their centers, highly attended. People really like them. Motivates you. Whatever you can do that you can maintain is really important. If you're having trouble with sleep, maybe get a sleep study. That would be indicated if you're really struggling with that. But everybody always asks, what should I eat? I can't eat this because I have diabetes. Well, that's not necessarily true. There's no one diet for diabetes. And when I was in college in the 70s, late 70s, we had the diabetic exchange list. We would talk to people, figure out how many calories we thought they needed, and figure out their exchange. And we'd like, you have to eat 2 starches and 1 dairy and 3 low fat protein. It was crazy. Did anybody follow it? No. So good thing that is gone now. What they usually try to do is get people to understand carbohydrates, because carbohydrates break down to sugar, and that what raises your blood sugar, and do like carb counting. And it's very, very much easier. You can eat whatever you want. It's just how much of it. And obviously, some choices are not as good as other choices health-wise. So anyway, the Diabetes Association does have what's called a diabetic plate method, and I'll show you what they've based it on. Is choosemyplate.gov. Now, we're all familiar with this, replace the food pyramid. 9-inch plate. This half is vegetables and fruits. The other half of your plate is your protein. And this part are the grains. And then there's dairy. Well, the diabetic plate method, they have actually made this half all non-starchy vegetables. So the fruits come off the plate there. And this is all your like salad stuff, your green beans, your kale, your spinach, broccoli, carrots, that kind of stuff. The starchy vegetables are now put in another category. So starchy vegetables are your like peas, corn, potatoes, and stuff. Protein remains the same, but in that protein before, there used to be the plant-based proteins, which are legumes and stuff. Well, they're out because now they have a category. Instead of this grains and dairy, they have what's called carbohydrate foods. So that encompasses the legumes, the fruits, the grains, the dairy are all carbohydrate foods. So if you followed this plate and only had this little section as a carbohydrate food, this would be a pretty low carbohydrate meal. And again, it's so important to get individual help when you're trying to learn how to manage your carbohydrates. Dietitians like myself or a certified diabetes educator are all very knowledgeable in what foods are carbohydrate, what portion sizes. When I worked at the hospital, we kind of started people off with a kind of an allowance of 3 servings of carbohydrate. And how you picked it was up to you, which was nice because you didn't like, oh, I have to drink this or I have to that. So what we would tell people is do the 3 servings of carbohydrate, check your blood sugars after 2 hours after meal. If it's really high, well, then 3 is too much. But it's really trying to tweak it and figure it out. And that's where individual help is really comes in handy. But there will be a PDF at the back that you, at the end of this, you can print out. It's from the Diabetes Association, Plan Your Diabetes Plate, and it really goes into so much more detail. But if you're really struggling with this, please don't hesitate to see me privately or contact the hospital. There's a lot of people out there willing to help you. We have health connections through the MedStar St. Mary's. We have the health department. We have Department of Aging. So you don't have to be alone in this. It's not like oh, I don't know what to do. What am I going to do? Always, and here's the thing, let's review. You're going to have your doctor involved checking your A1C. You're going to make some lifestyle changes, your eating, your health, sleeping, your exercise habits. Take care of your mental health. That's important. A diagnosis of a chronic disease like diabetes can be like, oh, I can't do this. Get help if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling depressed. If you have type 1 diabetes, you're on insulin for the rest of your life. There's no vacation from that. And that can be daunting, especially if you've had it since you were a child and you're like, oh, I'm just sick of this. So get help. It's really important in mental health to address that. Take your meds if the doctors prescribe them on time. And I know it's not easy, but like I said, there's a lot of us out there to help you. Lots of resources. That website is probably the best one you can go to. The Diabetes Association is going to really connect you with a lot of stuff. So, you know, we're here. We'll help you, and hopefully you get better at doing all this. And then next month, I'm going to talk to you about supplements, and should you take a supplement? Do you need a supplement? What supplements are safe? All that kind of stuff. So I hope to see you back here next month. Bye now.